Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining the Cat B and Andy B Inspired Connection show. It's just today, it's Girls' Day. We've got Carol Allen in the house. Welcome, Carol. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Well, you're so welcome. So we're coming again transatlantic from the UK and the USA. Tell everybody where you are and tell everybody about your story, Carol.
I am in Cave Creek, Arizona. So that's just right on the basically Phoenix area. And my son Tyler, who is forever 19, he passed away in a motorcycle accident, and that was 10 years ago. So it's crazy to say it's 10 years because it still feels like yesterday. I feel so close to him. And he's just, I used to say, gosh, if I knew all my kids would be like Tyler, I could have 10 kids, because he was just an amazing, kind, one of his friends had said at his service that everyone would probably agree he was as close to perfect as a human could be, just full of love and compassion. So, when he passed away, I did not want to live. I did not think I was going to be able to survive. And I think I have another son, and I love him as much, and he's just as amazing. And I think I just felt like, well, I don't want him to think that he's not worth being here for. But I also will say that when Tyler passed away, I really had no belief in anything, because I grew up Catholic, but as I got older, I just started to question everything. And I didn't really know that there was anything once we passed. And my older son, he used to get in my head because he has a very scientific brain. And he led me to believe that, we know energy can't be destroyed, but he said basically our conscious is just, we pass away and that's it. So it was crazy when Tyler passed away. The signs came on so strong. He was going to prove me wrong. And really the craziest part of the entire process was that my older son started to see him. And who could I believe more than my older son, who used to tell me there's nothing, and he's giving me messages and saying, I see Tyler, and he's thanking you for cleaning his room today. And the list goes on and on. He came on so strong, and it just changed my entire perspective of how I view life and how I view I just know that I will be with him again. I know we will all be together, and life is quick.
This is really weird, but have you just seen that Lynn's come on? And Lynn's not, that's just happened randomly. Carol, and I can't remove it. I was like, how she got on? And then she's not there. It's clearly something's happened when we've been speaking. Does Tyler do things with communication?
Gosh, constantly. He could move things. Early on, especially, I'd be watching a TV show and just sitting there, and the TV would turn to a completely different channel, and it'd be some news channel, and then they'd mention his name, like, oh, we have Tyler here with us today. Of course, it wasn't my Tyler, but he's always lights flicker and tons of things he can do with electricity. Very, very, very good with electricity.
That's really crazy. Had Tyler always been a very outgoing child? Had he always been like, when I know that he transitioned in an accident, did you ever warn him about the motorbike or ever kind of raise concerns about it, Carol?
Absolutely. I always worried about Tyler. It was almost as though, even though you never really think something's going to happen to you, my life was so, everything always has been, I've had a great childhood. I have amazing family. And so even though you worry, you never really think, or I didn't, that something like this can happen. But I always had this gut, this knowing. I worried about Tyler more than my other son. Because I almost felt like I'd say it was my soul that just knew. It was that premonition. And I did not want him on that motorcycle. He left NAU because he didn't know what he wanted to do with himself. And he said, I just don't think I'm a college boy. My older son is very, studious, and Tyler always preferred to do things with his hands. And he finally said one day, Mom, I'm going to go to MMI, Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. I want to, work on motorcycles and hopefully have my own shop one day. And I was completely against it. My husband's always ridden motorcycles, but I said, no, 19-year-old does not belong on a motorcycle. And I was scared to death. And my husband said, he's a grown man. You got to let him live his life. And at first, I was mad because when this accident occurred, I blamed my husband for not supporting me. I blamed myself for not standing my ground. But since then, and Tyler, I feel like, has proved to me numerous times, Mom, this, if you had said no to the motorcycle, it would have been something else, because I believe that it was his time to go. And he even made some really strange comment about a month before he passed about a girl that kind of wanted to date him. And he said, I just don't know if I want her to be my last girlfriend. And I said, your last girlfriend? And I said, you're 19. Do you think if you date her, you have to marry her? And right as he said that, he had this look in his eye. It's almost like he reminded me of this after he passed away. It's like I got this thought of him saying that. It because he looked at me and he said, that was a weird thing to say, huh? He goes, I don't know why I said she'd be my last girlfriend. And it's like he knew, his soul knew, and it just kind of slipped out. And there's just, he got this weird virus when he was 14, and we rushed him to the emergency. We thought it was like he'd had a stroke. He couldn't really talk, and we didn't know what was going on. The doctors thought maybe he was hemorrhaging from his head. It was very scary. And after numerous tests, they said, well, it's a virus that went into his cerebellum, and you're very lucky because sometimes it becomes fatal, but he'll make a full recovery. It didn't get to a part of his brain or his heart, but it took about a month for him to recover. And then I've been told by numerous mediums over the years that was one of his exit points. And they said to me, one medium said he had something with his brain. That was an exit point where he got really sick. And then another medium said he had an exit point at 14 when he got really sick, but he wasn't ready. He still hadn't finished everything he came here to do. And so knowing that, I've let go of any guilt. Fortunately, I don't blame my husband for not supporting me and saying no to the motorcycle. But yes, my gut was telling me for years. I just worried about him constantly, more so than even normal.
He's here. I can feel him, and he's putting his hands out like an angel. Because I know
Yes.
he's
We
one of
have
these
so many
children.
pictures of him like this.
Yeah, just like hands up in the air, like you just don't care. He's literally putting his hands up like this. He's also tickling my neck, which is making me laugh. But he's putting his hands out in the air. Angel child, we always talk about these moments, but since his transition, your work has really just begun, Carol. How long before you started to question, is there something more?
Well, pretty much immediately, I started seeing strange things happening. And Elizabeth from Helping Parents Heal had reached out to me, and I did not know her. I had no idea that she had this organization, but she actually came to the service because her daughter knew Tyler. And she walked over to me and she just handed me a card and she said, my phone number's in there. Nothing about Helping Parents Heal, but she said, call me, when things settle down because you'll need help. And there were lots of people that reached out, but I know Tyler sent me to her because when I was ready to reach out, because all these things were happening, I thought I need to talk to somebody. I had no idea what she would say. I had no idea that this is what she was all about. Obviously, Tyler knew, and he led me to her. And I started telling her these things that were happening. And then she said, of course they're happening. He's trying to let you know that I'm here and I'm good, Mama. I want you to. And so she validated that for me. And then she said, I have a support group, and she told me all about it, and she gave me a list of books to read about the afterlife. And so I was so fortunate because probably that was within 3-4 weeks of Tyler's transition. And Elizabeth, I always say she was my earth angel because she was just there calling me and saying, come on, let's hike. I feel Tyler saying we need to hike. And so I was so lucky because she helped me move forward, and she even made jokes saying sometimes I almost felt like I was stalking you because but I felt him pushing me like, call my mom, call my mom, call my mom. And it was the group then was smaller. So within a year and a half, I said, maybe I should start an affiliate group at my home because the only meetings that we had were every third Sunday. And we wouldn't really have a chance to talk as parents because we would have mediums and we would have speakers. And then when the parents would want to visit, Unity would be kicking us out. And so I immediately said, maybe we should start a meeting. I'd like to start an affiliate group. And Elizabeth said, are you ready? That would be amazing. And so I started within a year and a half, having support groups at my home. And I don't know, just I felt like I was serving, I was taking this tragic event that just shattered me. And I was using it to help others and making something, beautiful out of something that was so life shattering. And that just really, I've always said, helping others and, reaching your hand back and helping pull a new mom forward is not only fulfilling or helping them, but it was really helped me and gave me that purpose. The most important, one of the most important purposes in my life.
Well, that's so beautiful, Carol. What were some of the inspired connections that you'd experienced before that moment where Elizabeth connected the dots?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I saw the crazy signs that he was giving me, but I was such a skeptic. And so he knew these signs better be like so big that my mom can't explain them away. She can't. So as I had said earlier, my older son would see his brother, and he lived in California. He was home for a month after his brother's passing. But then I went to California to see my older son, and he handed me his telephone and he said to me, Mom, what do you see in this picture? And the picture was a picture of my husband's face with his helmet on. And that picture was taken at Tyler's service because right before we went to a celebration of life, we had about 30 motorcycles show up in our cul-de-sac. We heard this roar, and it was all of his friends from MMI. And my husband said, you know what? I am going to take Tyler's motorcycle because Tyler's motorcycle was still intact. When Tyler had had the accident, it was on his dad's motorcycle because his motorcycle at the time had a flat tire. And so he was riding my husband's. But my husband had fixed the flat tire after Tyler had passed away, and so his motorcycle was intact. So he said, I'm gonna ride Tyler's motorcycle to the service. So following the celebration of life, my husband was first in line on Tyler's motorcycle, and there was this line of kids and men, whatever, behind him on motorcycles. And my nephew's girlfriend had taken a picture of my husband, and it was a full body picture. And TJ said to me, my older son, he said, I said to Tyler, because he would talk to him all the time, I said to Tyler, you have to help mom. You have to help her. You have to give her something that will help her. And TJ said that Tyler told him it's in the picture of dad on the motorcycle at the service. So TJ said, I look at this picture, and it was on Facebook, and it was, there was a few different areas that this picture was. He said, and I look at this picture and I say to him, I don't see anything. And he says to me, expand the face. So TJ says, I look at the face, and there's his helmet has like, a plastic casing around it, and there, clear as day, is this reflection of Tyler's face in the helmet. I mean, it was so, and I saw it and I screamed. And TJ said, do you see it? And I said, oh my gosh, it's Tyler's face. And he said, Mom, I saw that, and I actually threw my phone. It freaked me out. I thought I was losing my mind. He said, I'm happy you see it. And for years on my phone, on the screensaver, for years, I kept this picture on my phone to constantly remind me, because he was smiling in this picture. And I just kept this picture on my phone so that whenever I would get that excruciating pain where I thought I couldn't pick myself up, I would look at this and they'd say, there he is, there he is. And I also said to my husband when we saw this face, I said, oh my goodness, he saw everything. He saw all the love. He saw all those people there. And, it made me, because when it first happened after the service, I said, gosh, we always knew Tyler was loved. I mean, he was everybody's best friend because he was such a cheerleader for an underdog. I mean, he could not tolerate if somebody was mean to somebody. And we always knew that he had tons of friends and everybody loved him. But I said, I don't even think he knew how much he was loved. And after I saw his face, I said, oh my gosh, he was there. And I just cried. I said, he saw all the love. He saw, he knows. And that was
Carol,
just so amazing.
So profound. These images do happen to a few people. They are rare, but they do happen. And somebody contacted me the other day, actually, just with a photo of their loved one in the trees.
Mm.
And it's clearly them because it was actually caught on a video CTV camera. And it was actually not the parents that identified it. It was actually the person whose cam it was, who was a friend of the family. And they couldn't deny that the son's face was in the image. And they contacted me asking me, what is this kind of phenomenon? Well, there's quite a few people that experiment with vapor to see if you can get images. Often in just normal photographs, our ancestors and our loved ones that have transitioned can be found. And I met a really quirky guy, Carol, from the north of England, who said to me, I'll prove it to you. And he said, give me a photo from your website, one that's been taken a long time ago. And I gave him the main picture that's on the main page, and he expanded a bit on my neck. And I thought, what is he doing? Just what you said, he expanded the photo. And then he started sketching. This guy's never met any of my relatives, especially any of my relatives in spirit. And he drew my grandfather in Scotland on my mum's side of the family. And I literally nearly fell off my chair. I was like, how can you see that? He said, because I'm just a very tuned, intuitive person, and I could see the energy. And as I started to draw the outline, I could see there was a gentleman there with you, helping you when you had that photograph taken. And so this phenomenon, this expanding photo thing, it's a real thing, Carol. It's
It
really amazing.
is.
And I think what it is, the electronic captures the energy, isn't it? And they're around us all the time. And you needed a sign, and it had to be specific because you were a non-believer, and it was undeniable. Not just that. What I love about what you said is it gave you comfort.
Oh, yeah.
It gave you peace. He was smiling. It was something that you could look at on a regular basis. You kept it as your screensaver for a long time. Also, that awareness that he was there observing and so this continuation of life was very much part of that communication, wasn't it? That's really incredible. Have you had anything more like that happen since, Carol?
Well, we have had, it's just, there's been the biggest signs for me. Our first Thanksgiving, my son came home again to be with us from LA. And it was really our first holiday without him, because without him physically here, because I always say he's always with us, but he had passed in May, and then it was that following November. And my son was home, and he was out back, and he was like tossing the ball to his dog. And all of a sudden he calls me because he's out in the backyard, and it's about midnight. And I'm thinking, why is he calling me? Where is he? And it scared me. And I answer the phone. He's like, Mom, I'm out back. You've got to come out here right now. You've got to come out here. So I went out there, and TJ was crying, and he said, Mom, Tyler is here. He said, would not believe what happened. He said, I was tossing this ball, Hercules, his dog. He said, and all of a sudden Hercules kind of like started barking and freezing. He said, and I felt Tyler's energy. And he said, and all of these lights started appearing on the ground. He goes, it was like there's just appearing one by one, these drops of lights. And he said, and he said, see, there's one left. And he was crying. And he said, and I started to cry. And he said, and Tyler's here. And I said, I wish I had seen that. And I go, and so I saw one light, and I put my finger on it to see if it was coming from the sky, if it would still be and I couldn't see it. And then I stood up, and all of the sudden, as I stood up and I felt this thick energy, as I started to turn around, they started to appear around me and circle me. I can almost cry talking about it, and just all these lights started appearing. It's pitch black outside, and they're on the grass. I'm circled with these lights. And my son goes, Tyler, we miss you, buddy. He's here, Mom. And then I turn around, and as I walk back towards the door, the lights are like following me. And it was just so, and I had this big crystal that one of my friends had given me. And she says, it was the crystal. It was this massive quartz out in the backyard. And she said, I wonder if that helped that happen because of the energy from the crystals. But it's one of those things that I share with all of the parents from that are on this journey with me. I don't share it with others because they don't believe me. It just sounds, and I probably years ago I wouldn't have believed it. I would have thought, oh, it's their mind wanting. But now I share it, and of all of us that understand what we understand now, just it
I've had
provides so much comfort.
a similar experience. It's really funny. And I was kind of the skeptic in the story. I was on retreat in Canada, and I'd done a trance demonstration, and I was coming back from the trance demonstration into the lady's house that I was staying at. And she was like, oh, no, 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 get out, out, out. And I was like, what do you mean? She went, there's orbs all around you. Bring them into the house like this, out, out, out. And I said, oh, don't be so silly. Where's the orbs? She said, I can see them on the camera. There's 7 of them. She went, look, I'm telling you. And she was just like, go, 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 go away. And she said, all went but one. And you can see it on the camera. And it was like, I was like, that is really bizarre. It's never, I ground myself when I leave these things. So it's never happened before, but they must have been overexcited that night or wanting to show off. And they came around. And also, when my grandfather died, my mum had a similar experience. And my mum's a non-believer, Carol, where she experienced lights. And I think I mentioned it in another podcast. She literally closed her eyes, and my mum was a bit scared. She got the duvet and she tried to hide under the duvet like the what no man, but the lights got brighter and she could hear voices in the room next door as she was actually staying behind the master room, and she could hear the voices of my grandma and my granddad speaking, and they were about to bury him the next day. He had already transitioned. And we perhaps wouldn't have believed my grandma the next day had it not been that my mum witnessed this event. And my grandma actually said to her, did you see the lights, Joan? And she said, I did. So these orbs, they're very, again, very rare, but when they happen, they're magical and they people. And some people find it easy when they catch them on cameras. I know when I was in France, I said to my husband in 2019, I went just before COVID on this trip that the kids had sent me on through France. And at one particular point at this monastery up in the mountains on the Midi-Pyrenees, an orb appeared on my camera as I went to take a photo of my daughter and my husband, and it kept moving. And I said to them, hey, listen, I'm just going to follow this light and see where it wants to go. It seems to want to direct me. It's bouncing around. And they came with me for a little bit. I ran down the road like a crazy person. There's nobody there, except this light bouncing. I couldn't see it with the naked eye, Carol. I could only see it when I had the digital camera or the phone in front of me with the camera. And after a while, they were like, oh, this is crazy. It's going too fast. I was like, well, I'm going to go through the bracken and everywhere, and I'm going to follow it. And they decided to turn back because it was getting dark. And I said, look, if I'm not back in 45 minutes, come look for me. But I'm just going to follow it because I just got this gut intuition that it wants me to be guided by this light. And I went through the bracken and off the beaten track. It probably was, in hindsight, a little bit precarious, Carol, but my gut feeling was just so strong. You've got to follow this light. And eventually it took me out to an opening on the top of the mountain where a beautiful cross memorial was stood. And I stood there with this 360 view of the valleys around me. It was absolutely breathtaking. And it was actually the sunset. And it was awe-inspiring. It was probably one of the most beautiful moments naturally as the light started to change. When I said to Spirit, why have you brought me here of all the places? And they said, well, it's about faith. Sometimes you have to use your intuition to follow your instincts. And we wanted to show you that if you were led and you felt intuitively drawn, that we could lead you to a place and a symbol of faith. And it was really synchronistic because at the same time, a mum in the UK group, I was an affiliate leader for a while like yourself, she had actually posted synchronistically on social media, and she was in Norway, and she was talking about how in Norway the symbol of the cross is the mast of a ship, and how the ship is, the sail guides the boat, doesn't it, to a certain degree. You maneuver the sail and it helps drive the wind, and it harnesses it. That idea that the angels are the wind or your loved ones in spirit, and you move your sail to harness it and to be driven towards it. But she was also talking about the sunset, and it was just so synchronistic. And her son in spirit's called Peter, and I was actually staying in a room that was called St. Pierre's Room. And when I went in, the lady in the hotel said to me, "Are you spiritual at all?" And I said, "Pardon?" And she said, "Are you spiritual?" She said, "We tend to find that people who take this room are the spiritual people." Because it used to be the head monk's room, and only specific spiritual people tend to stay in this room, which is kind of funny. But also, Pierre was the middle name of Morgan. So I found it very, again, just very synchronistic, Carol. But it just shows you these orbs of light can direct you. And it is about having faith, and you have to believe in them. And I can see very open-heartedly that you're not the kind of person that would make that up. You
No.
genuinely, you experienced it.
Oh, yeah. And I used to laugh because I'll tell my friends, that the friends in the group, gosh, if I had met me before I was on this journey, or somebody like me, I would have said, "Oh, that woman, she's kind of out there." And here I'm the one. But now I know, because when you don't have to search for those answers. And I think I was just I was just wrapped up in this earthly physical realm. And it's crazy because my sister it was a session. It was like numerology, and had some mediumship, but this was early on. And my sister said to me that Tyler had come through, and then the medium had said that I have always been very in all my previous lives, which I didn't used to believe in reincarnation, but now I do. And they used to scare me because I thought then I won't see him, but now I know no matter what, he's there. But one of the things she said was, well, she was always so wrapped up in all her lives in this physical life. And it was going to take something this earth shattering, and to me, any loss is devastating, but the loss of, I used to say that's the one thing I would not be able to get through, was having one of my children pass, because they're my world. They're like the thing. I love them the most. And so then to have this horrible thing happen, he had said through the medium that it was going to take something this big to finally crack me open and have me, search for those answers and open myself up and realize that, yes, there is so much more.
Wow, wow. And am I right in saying you wrote a book, Carol?
I did. I did write a book. It took me about 4 years. I started because I would journal. When all these things would happen, I would write them down, because I would think I have to remind myself when I start questioning everything, I have to go back and look at my little list. So I started journaling, and I started it was pages of things that he did that were just incredible. And so finally I felt, I'm going to write a book. I'm just going to write a book and talk, just kind of show these signs and show my journey, how I went from thinking I wasn't even could not live, to actually, finding that happiness and joy with Tyler walking beside me. And so I did write a book, and it's called, Mom, I'm Not Gone, Tyler Lives. So, and it's a picture my cover has a picture of him with his arms up like this in Sedona, because he was always, it's crazy because I didn't really raise them religious. When they were little, I took them to Catholic church for a little while, and then we stopped going. But yet he was spiritual. His friends would say, yeah, he wanted to go to Sedona. And we also found, when we were going through his desk months later, there was this journal in there, and it had nothing. There was nothing written in there except the front page said, I know two things: I exist and God exists. And that was the only thing he had written in it. Yeah. But yeah, so what I did is I did write the book, and I just it starts a little sad because I want parents, just for a chapter, because I didn't want to go into a lot of like what I went through, but I want parents to realize as well that, yes, I was where you are. I thought that I would never find joy again. I thought I would just exist, but yet I've been able to move forward. So I just wanted them to see that first, that first month or whatever. And then I just start talking about the signs that I experienced. And I have I have the picture of the helmet with his face. I show a picture of Tyler's profile, and then I kind of circle it in the book and show, so you could see that face where he's sideways, and you can see his beard and his smile, and it looks like he's maybe got a bandana on. And then I just kind of went through, I talk about the lights because that was so profound about how I could see it with my naked eye but the book is just kind of goes through my journey and the healing that I did and what I have come to know.
That's really, really profound, very beautiful. I know I've had some good signs from Tyler in my time. He will pop in every now and then, and the reason that you're here today is that I was literally going through the security at the airport when suddenly this guy lifted his arm up really randomly and it said Tyler on a tattoo on the forearm, and I was like, hi, I'm taking note, you're coming with me to Canada. But I was aware then that he was saying it's time to get my mum on and to speak to everybody about her journey. But I was when I was in France, Tyler made a he came to me in set with a motorbike, and the motorbike had a dream catcher on, and I didn't realize the significance of the dream catcher. We'd never
Ah,
discussed the dream catcher. I didn't know that there was a connection. All I knew was Tyler kept saying to me, take a photo of this bike. And I took a photo, and also on my number plate of the car that we'd hired, the car got changed and the number plate said TJ, and then there was 777, which means, it's kind of one of those angelic numbers that says, you're about to find your destiny, you're about to kind of walk forward. And of course, it's all about signs and synchronicities. But when I was at the conference, your husband saw the number plate and he went, TJ, like on the number plate. And I hadn't even noticed it, Carol. That was the beauty of it. And I was like, I knew that the number plate was significant because of the 777, but I hadn't really put together that Tyler's initials were on the number plate. But then I said, I need to show you something. I wanted to ask you about the significance of the dream catchers, because he was adamant I had to take a picture of this bike. And it's very unusual that you get an illustration of a dream catcher on the body of a motorbike. I said, but this one was so beautifully and intricately painted. And your husband went,
yeah.
was he bought two dream catchers and he put one over each of the children's beds when they were younger. Is that right, Carol?
Absolutely. And right now, and I won't walk you in the room because I have my two little dogs in there on my bed and they'll go nuts. But we have a dream catcher hanging. We have like a 4-poster bed, and my husband has kept it a dream catcher there now for years, like long before that you had talked about the dream catcher. So that's still hanging on my 4-poster bed because it just reminds us of the boys when they were little, and we always had their little dream catchers.
Yeah, it's just lovely how these little things are set up to kind of
Yeah.
at certain times, aren't they?
Yeah. And TJ, even though my older son, his name is Tony Ray, he's a junior, so he named himself TJ. He didn't like TR, but it was for TJ. But Tyler's initials are Tyler John, so it is
Mm.
TJ for Tyler as well. So when you said the
Yes.
TJ and then the 777.
Yeah, it's really significant, isn't it? The other thing that I always remember about Tyler, and it always makes me giggle, is the moment that he talked about the snake. And that was another sign that he gave me. It
That
was,
was hilarious. That was
it,
that was amazing.
yeah, it's so funny because he was, just to sort of share with the viewers, we were doing a reading.
And
It was your husband and I think it was the first time I'd ever met your husband, who's absolutely lovely. And Tyler was laughing, wasn't he? He was saying that he'd been on a hike and that your girlfriend had got spooked about a snake, or the idea that there was a snake, and she was jumping around and he was doing the impersonation of her. And you had indeed been on the path the day before just by
that
that
was
you
incredible.
had
That was
played
incredible.
with him.
We came across a snake and she jumped up and she heard a rattle and she jumped up, and I literally thought it had struck her and I started, and she was running and she was so paranoid when we started the hike. Like, are there going to be snakes here? And my husband even wanted us to take the stick. I said, we're not taking a stick. We'll just watch the trail. And she was from Colorado. And anyway, so I said to her, so she just started to run. And I said, wait, stop. Are you okay? Did you get, bit from the snake? And she said, snake, I just heard a noise. And then she started freaking out and running. And then we saw another one right in the middle. I'm like, stop. And I just started to laugh because I said, why are you running? It's not going to chase you, but it was so funny. So then the very next day when you said, and Tyler's laughing, jumping up and down, going, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. But my girlfriend was saying that, well, what if I had been struck? The car, there's no service up here. And I said, you would have been fine. We would have got you, so you doing that, and I had to immediately call her because she's back in Colorado. And you said that Tyler had said, I wasn't going to let anything happen to her. But it was crazy because that snake almost did get her. But when you said that, it was really great.
Where you put the memorial bench, because you actually placed a memorial bench on one of those hills.
That is where we had the memorial. It was at Spur Cross because we have his memorial bench up there. And she was paranoid right from the get-go because we went a little later and she's like, this is way out here. There's nobody here. Is it safe? And I said, yes, it's safe. We're fine. We'll get back in an hour. It's 30 minutes to the bench, 30 minutes back. But it was funny. We still talk about that.
Oh, that's amazing. How much does memorializing somebody with a bench or another, some people do random acts of kindness. Some people find it lovely to buy something, or maybe it's a garden and they put a plaque in it, or perhaps they buy a bench. Different people do different things, but how did that make a difference, Carol?
I'm trying to remember. We went to, Spur Cross and we got the approval for it. And I'm fortunate because there was already 2 benches on that site. And one is Elizabeth's son, Morgan, and then my Nita, who knew Tyler because she worked with him at El Encanto for a little while. And I had known Nita before Tyler passed, and her son's bench, and there's only supposed to be 2. But when we were hiking one day, on a group hike, the gentleman who was leading everything and who was in charge of it, I had asked him, I said, I'd like to get a bench. And he said, well, we have a waiting list right now. And Elizabeth had said, well, there's room up here. And he said, well, normally we only allow 2. But then he said, Nita and Elizabeth said, oh, it'd be nice for Tyler to have a bench up here. And he got it approved for me. So I was able to get a bench in that same location. Yes. And I think it's maybe $400. Honestly, it's been so long, I don't remember, but maybe $300. It's not horribly expensive. It's not, inexpensive, but it was well worth it.
Well, that's so beautiful. The 3 as well, symbolic of Trinity, or mum, father,
Yeah.
child. Well, really lovely, the idea of the 3 on the top of the mountain. Was that a particular area? It was just a place that you lived, or was it a particular area connected to Tyler as well?
Tyler loved to hike. He was all about nature. I mean, he'd ride his BMX bike and fly down the hills, which he always gave me a heart attack, but he was very outdoorsy, really in tune with nature. And that was one of the hikes. He was always in Cave Creek, and there's so many different trails at Spur Cross. And the one we put the bench on is good because it's not real hard. So my folks could walk it and we can get people to walk it. But yes, that trail, that was one of the hikes that the areas he loved to hike. So it was very special.
If you were to tell the viewers listening 3 top tips for what you'd recommend and how to deal with grief, or in terms of to harness these inspired connections to kind of get the healing and support that you need, what would you share, Carol? What would your great advice be?
Well, I think it's really important. Number 1, read everything you can on the afterlife. Read everything you can. I mean, I spent the first year, I couldn't work. Probably not the smartest financial decision, but I could not wrap my head around working the first year. And I'm a real estate agent, so I didn't have to punch a clock. So it was easy just to check out. And so I did spend that year reading every book I could get my hands on about the afterlife. I meditated all the time. I tried mirror gazing. I did automatic writing. I learned every which way to connect with Tyler. And that just kept me feeling close to him. And finding your tribe, like-minded people, other parents who understand where we're at, but also are like-minded, that want to connect, and it is hard in the beginning because of the grief. So find a medium that's been recommended, somebody who's on our approved list, somebody that that is the real deal. And that is incredible. I mean, my very first reading, I walked out of there feeling like $1,000,000. Like I was talking to Tyler. It was just incredible. And so, finding those friends, meeting for coffee, talking about the kids, meditating, and, journaling. I mean, journaling and reminding yourself. And I always say that I always tell people, I promise you can find that happiness again. And the years go by so quickly, and then we'll just all be together. And I feel as close to Tyler. I mean, I talk to him every day. If I can't, if I lost something, I'm like, you have to help me out here. You have to help me find these keys, Tyler. I don't have time to be late. It's like I have this little 24-hour angel, my little buddy with me all day, every day. So,
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And it is that, I think the difference with the philosophy of yourself and many other people within your group, Carol, is that there's a continuation of life and that life is eternal. Is that fair to say, as opposed to a
absolutely.
permanent, this idea that everything's permanent or ended or like is over? It's just such a joy to see the evidence that actually no, actually eternal life does exist, and these beautiful synchronicities and signs come through that are so unusual, very, very rare, but equally not rare in our community. We see that the more and more that people talk about it, the more and more other people experience it. And that's really part of the idea behind the podcast is, look, it's not just about myself and Carol here. Every single person can have these experiences if they're open to receive them and they raise their awareness that they exist. And this magic is all around us and can kind of unfold this incredible story. Well, Carol, thank you so much for coming to speak to
Thank you.
me
Thank you.
here. I really, really appreciate you. I know that
Well, I appreciate having you.
I'm
I
fascinated
mean, I
to
appreciate
hear.
you having me. And also, I wanted to say when you asked me, and also at the time, we didn't have, the podcasts like what you're doing and the HPH, the YouTube videos. It's so beautiful. If you can't concentrate on reading, look for these things to help us, like your
Yeah,
podcast.
because
I
sometimes
just
listening over and over again
over and
also helps
over.
you tune yourself
So
to sound as well. Yeah, because your
important.
concentration goes. You've got adrenaline, cortisone kicking through your body. You can't concentrate. Some people say to me they read the same book over and over and over again because every time they read it, they've forgotten the paragraph or the chapter. That's really normal when you're in grief.
Exactly.
Your concentration's really affected. So listening to a podcast, I remember a lady saying to me about an alternative podcast that I think she literally listened to one a day, like 365 episodes within the first year, just literally constantly replaying them so that the information sunk in and that she could get
Mhm.
awareness of the things to look out for. And I think that's invaluable. I think
Exactly.
it's absolutely invaluable. Well, thank you for being here and
Thank
sharing.
you so much. We just love you. We just love you.
Thank you, my darling. It's so kind. So kind.